I am now going to hand over to Kate, who is the founder of the Globe Foundation and managing director of the Globe Group, which is a non-profit organization dedicated to tackling climate change. And Kate is going to share her experience of turning climate events into moments that get politicians paying attention and taking action. So, Kate, I'm going to hand over to you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. So, as Jad said, I'm Kate Copeland Rhodes, and I'm just going to share my screen in the hope that everyone can see the slides there. Yeah, perfect. I'm getting thumbs up. Brilliant. So, I'll just tell you very briefly about who we are, because we sound very large and very grand. And we do have two brands. Anyone would think I used to run a marketing agency. So we are actually only two staff. We started as a litter picking group about 7 years ago. We have about 10 volunteers, and a lot of what we do in collaboration with other partners to actually pack the punch that we do. As I say, we have two brands, and it's because we found that with the climate change agenda, everyone needs to be involved with this, whether it's community organizations, individuals, residents, or working with organizations, politicians, civil servants. But the language used often tends to be a bit different. There is almost a set civil servant speak, and lots of acronyms and things that you have to wade through. So we found that actually using really targeted language just helps us attract people. So that's why we have two brands. But as I say, it's just the two of us working our way through all of the projects and things that we try to deliver here. But we are community-led, we are a non-profit, and we're based in Staffordshire. So that's a little bit about us. So we got involved in Great Big Green Week. I think this was the first one actually that we got involved with. So we've been involved from day dot. And we'd established Globe a few years prior. We were situated in basically some garden sheds at a garden centre, and we really wanted to try and connect all the different threads that go into sort of the complex issue that is climate change, and all of the different veins that it touches within political agendas, local agendas, all the different threads there. So we ambitiously set up something called Sustainable Uttoxeter, which is where our base is. And Sustainable Uttoxeter was about helping everyone sort of start to understand their part in how we got to net zero by 2030. And we used Big Green Week to launch it. And we wanted to really use this to help give an idea of, you know, who people need to be speaking to make things happen. And the realization for us was that lots of politicians don't actually talk to each other because they have, say, separate portfolios or separate things, and they're not actually all aware of what left and right hand are doing. So actually we acted as almost like a facilitative support to actually start getting different boroughs or different districts engaging with each other as much as we were engaging with the politicians themselves. So we set up a load of events. This was very ambitious, and I will play you a bit of a video from our first event, and it is pretty much Spot the Politician. But we had a gala dinner where we invited a local MP to attend, but also we invited former MPs to attend. Don't forget your former MPs. They have still brilliant connections. They have brilliant insights into how it all works. So do engage with your former politicians. Just because they're not in post now doesn't mean they're not still able to have the reach and some of the clout that they once had. So we invited, as I say, former politicians, lots of councillors, and because it was a free dinner, and it's amazing what free food will do, everyone turned up and we got a fantastic turnout for that. We paid for it through funding as well and sponsorship this first Big Green Week. So we did get a pot of funding, but the gala dinner itself was through sponsorship. We ran lots of business and community sessions online, and we actually found, because we had included the councillors in sort of some of the round robin emails, just to like local councillors, they were actually coming to some of those sessions as well, because a lot of your councillors, that's not their full-time job. They are business owners, you know, they've got other activities that they're doing, so you may find them there with different hats on. We organised school visits, and then we had our climate carnival, which is the picture you see there at the bottom of the screen. So we basically spoke to the local council, got permission to put on a climate carnival in the park. We invited lots of different stand holders, and you know, we had nothing, so you had to say to people, bring your own tables, bring your gazebos. And yeah, it was fantastic. We had a really good turnout. We had, I think it was over 300 people turn up for that first one. We were lucky with the weather, to be fair. And that's sort of where our Big Green Week journey started. So the second year, we decided we'd bitten off more than we can chew by running a whole festival of events. So we actually sort of brought it down into 2 events. We had the Climate Carnival, which we continued to run for several years afterwards, and we had our Climate Expo. So the Climate Expo is where we brought businesses and public sector together, and it now has around 500. It's an annual event. The reason it's no longer situated within the Big Green Weeks after 22 is because we hold it in September. We've kept it in September. So we have around 500 delegates attend that, from public sector to business and industry. And I call it my knocking heads together event, because it's about bringing people together, breaking out of their silos and actually having those cross-sector conversations. It's so important. We all get so bogged down with day-to-day work that we don't actually sometimes lift our head above the parapet and think what else is going on in other places. And you see that with politicians and their portfolios. They're often not necessarily aware of what's going on elsewhere because it's not within their portfolio, but actually it will impact them and they do need to be aware of it. So make sure you're having those conversations, not just with like your sustainability and climate leads, but also your housing, your transport, all the different sectors that Jo mentioned earlier. So as I say, so we've held some fantastic events, and we have been, I will say, luck plays a big part of it as well as effort. We have been lucky in who's been available and who we've been able to get to the events. This year is really challenging because the event we're running is actually predominantly for politicians, and it is talking about policy. So we're running a climate policy impact simulator workshop, which just rolls off the tongue, and that is to bring lots of politicians, local politicians together to actually explore what trade-offs and benefits look like depending on sort of where you move the needle on set policies, and to get them to actually understand some of the connections. So I'm just going to give a video here of that first gala dinner, which we have run, and this has now been sort of engulfed within our Climate Expo.
I'm here this evening to support the first inaugural Sustainable Uttoxeter Gala Dinner. We're at a critical point when it comes to tackling climate change, and it's really important to be here this evening. This evening gives us an occasion to reflect.
I'm the director of the Globe Foundation. We are spearheading the Sustainable Uttoxeter initiative to get Uttoxeter to net zero by 2030. Sustainable Uttoxeter is very much focusing on the bigger picture. It looks at 10 different themes that all tackle climate change in a different way, from waste to transport to health.
There's an enormous amount of activity going on in Staffordshire. The Staffordshire Chamber of Commerce is actually promoting the Green Business Week. We have companies here in Uttoxeter, as you'll be aware of, with JCB, looking at hydrogen as the, if you like, future prosperity and the fuel of the future. It's all about jobs, it's all about livelihoods, it's all about skills, it's all about education. But if we don't actually deal with the climate crisis, then we are handing over to future generations a planet that is not sustainable. And they are absolutely, young people are absolutely demanding of us that we take action.
It's about changing simple things in our everyday lives, how we process the foods that we eat, what we do with that when it's waste, and then of course all about biodiversity. Nobody wants to see a very just a bland ecosystem.
I think what the Globe Foundation is doing here in Uttoxeter is important. Every time something as really thorough as this happens, so systemic, what it gives us is a great idea, a great learning curve and a great idea of models that can be rolled out across this country, across other countries.
Never has the application of a growth mindset been more relevant than it is today, and with this subject. That is where I see worldwide what's replicated is that's when things get done. That's when we start being creative humans. That's when we start making a difference. A change in reality, a movement that moves things forward, even when we're in a painful situation.
We need to act and help build climate resilience locally as well as on a national and global level. It helps to bring that synergy together so that we can together as a whole collaborate to fight climate change.
So, as you could see, that was very much, mayoral chains, MPs galore. Joan Whalley, who you saw there as the former MP, but she's gone on to be the NHS Midlands Green Board chair. So, there are sort of having those links and building those links, no matter whether they're still in that political sphere or if they've moved on, is still really important. So I'm just going to I knew it was going to do that. Let me just skip to the next slide. So I'm just going to talk about some of the councillors and elected officials we've engaged with, because it can be so confusing to know who to deal with, because depending on where you live, there are lots of different layers. So obviously you've got your town and parish councils. Then your next layer up are like your borough and district councils, and then your next layer above that is your county councils, and then potentially your mayoral and combined authorities above that. So depending on where you live, you'll have different sort of reiterations of this. You might have a combined borough and county council layer, but basically every layer has councillors that you can engage with, and every layer will likely have a mayor and a deputy mayor that you can engage with as well. And some of those, there's a lot of ceremonial garbs that you'll see coming out. So, but it really helps if you have people walk around in the sort of mayoral chains, and it just gives that gravitas, and that sort of, as other people attending the event will see and think, oh, okay, so, the mayor's here. And whereas a lot of people, if the mayor was just stood there, wouldn't actually recognize the mayor unless they're wearing the bling. So it's really important, as I say, if you can sort of do things visually and get people to recognize these things visually, it helps from an outside perspective as well as engaging with your politician. Obviously other elected officials, so member of parliament, we're all keen to get our members of parliament to our events. We often find that we might get one, two if we're lucky, but very rarely do we get more than 2 MPs. So don't be disheartened if you're trying to get a group of MPs together and you can't. I think, you know, it's quite a common thing that it's difficult to get many MPs in one room unless it's something very political. Don't forget your House of Lords representatives as well. So we've done work with Natalie Bennett and other House of Lords reps, and it's really interesting, the process. If you're not familiar with how bills go through Parliament, it's really interesting the role that House of Lords plays. And so do reach out to your House of Lords representatives as well and get them along. Obviously, your ministers and cabinet members, if there's something that's a particular theme, like we've mentioned, community energy. So, you know, trying to get the ministers along. Obviously, everyone goes for the headline minister, but there are so many layers, ministerial layers as well within central government that might bring sort of, whether it's under secretaries, you know, it just might bring someone to your event if it's sort of that level of event. So don't be afraid to ask, I think, is what I would say the takeaway is here. The worst you can get is a no, but it puts you on their radar. And as long as that's in a positive way, then you can sort of open those doors in future for conversations. And if you get a no to your event, do go back to them and say, oh, it's a shame that you're unavailable, but we'd love to have a conversation with you anyway, and maybe do a one-to-one meeting instead when your availability clears. So do keep that line of conversation going, even if it's a no. The other one that gets forgotten is the Police Crime Commissioner. So they're elected officials as well. And obviously a lot of antisocial behaviour goes hand in hand with stuff like that. So do reach out to them. And then other influencers, you're more likely to get an MP to your event if you've had other influencers there. So we've had the Lord Lieutenant, Deputy Lieutenants, High Sheriffs, council CEOs, business CEOs, as all these people will help bring other people to your event. So do just reach out and get the right people for your event there. Some of these are sort of really self-explanatory. So not wanting to sort of teach you to suck eggs, but engage long before your event, find the common ground, send invitations in advance. So when I say engage long before your event, I mean get them familiar with your group, even before that you've mentioned there's an event happening. Know your contact methods. So often MP offices, everyone sends an email. There will be a phone number. Don't be afraid to pick up the phone. And remember, as Joe said, they've got a part to play. So it's always better if you're giving them a part to play. They're more likely to attend, we've found in general. Get to know their support team. So particularly with MPs and councillors, it's not just them that make all of this work happen, it's their support team. And if you are close with the policy managers and advisors and office managers of the MP, you are going to stand a better chance of getting quick responses to your emails and working more closely with them. And finally, don't be disheartened if things take time. It took me 7 years to build up the network of relationships we have. And obviously with elections, that all changes every so often as well, which can be quite frustrating. So as I say, just don't be disheartened. Keep going, keep asking, and just keep sharing the work that you're doing, because they will come on board eventually. So that is sort of the message and how we've attacked it. And I think that there will be sort of time for questions. So I'll pass back to Jazz.